In the previous class, we began covering the international standards on LGBT, which have developed greatly in the last few decades, in parallel with the increased interest on gender identity and sexual diversity on the part of human rights organizations and the general public. In this class, we will complement this review, highlighting the Latin American standards. We will deal with the following points. First, a recapitulation on the evolution of LGBT standards internationally. Second, the standards within the UN and the regional system. And third, the standards used by the Inter-American system. As we have seen, sexual orientation and gender identity raise classical human rights issues, such as non-discrimination, equality before the law, and the right to privacy. Moreover, one's sexual orientation can be a decisive factor when considering one's personhood as a bearer of rights. We have also covered the Yogyakarta principles on the application of international human rights law in relation to sexual orientation and gender identity, adopted by a group of experts in 2006. Human rights violations based on sexual orientation and gender identity have been addressed at different levels within the UN human rights bodies based on treaties and special procedures of the former Commission on Human Rights and its successor, the Human Rights Council. Yet, it was only in 2011 that the Human Rights Council, the UN political body in the field of human rights, adopted its first resolution on human rights, sexual orientation, and gender identity driven by South Africa. Under this resolution, a comprehensive study entitled Discriminatory Laws and Practices and Acts of Violence Against Individuals Based on Their Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity was commissioned from the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. In September of the following year, a brochure was published entitled Born Free and Equal: Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity in International Human Rights Law, which identifies the obligation of governments based on the work of the special procedures and treaty bodies. In 2014, this resolution was reiterated, this time prompted by Latin America states with the support of more than 40 countries. The new resolution requests an update of the study presented in 2012. Recently, in the last session of the Human Rights Council held in June 2016, in an historic vote, the United Nations Human Rights Council has established an independent expert on sexual orientation and gender identity. The independent expert will be able to identify violence and structural discrimination in order to develop strategies and legal standards to help ensure that all people can enjoy their fundamental human rights regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity. The independent expert will be presenting analysis and reports, engaging with states, UN agencies, and civil society, and formulating key recommendations to the UN Human Rights Council. The Inter-American Commission on Human Rights has put a special thematic emphasis on the rights of lesbians, gays, bisexual, trans, and intersex people. The Commission has included the issue in various country reports. In 2014, included the rights of LGBT in its strategic plan, and then in 2014, it created a specialized unit which was later transformed into a rapporteur. At a regional level, the Organization of American States, the OEAS, has achieved several milestones in this matter. In 2008, thanks to the strong impulse of Organization for Sexual Diversity in the region, the OEAS General Assembly adopted a historic resolution on human rights, sexual orientation, and gender identity. Subsequently, the General Assembly adopted resolutions that call on member states to eliminate all forms of discrimination and violence against LGBT people. In June 2015, the Inter-American Convention on Protecting the Human Rights of Older Persons was adopted. This instrument refers to the overlapping of discriminatory factors and explicitly prohibits discrimination against older persons based on their sexual orientation or gender identity. It is the first human rights instrument that explicitly refers to sexual diversity. In November 2015, the Inter-American Commission launched its first thematic report about violence against LGBT people or those perceived as such, or people with non-orthodox sexual orientation, identities, or gender expression, or whose bodies differ from socially accepted standards for male and female bodies. The report focuses on violence against LGBT peoples as a complex and multifaceted social phenomenon and not just as an isolated issue or individual problem. Furthermore, it also analyzed the situation of violence facing people given the intersection of their sexual orientation or gender identity with other factors such as ethnicity, race, migration status, status as a human rights defender, and poverty. The report contained more than 100 recommendations to states to address and resolve this problem. In regard to contention cases, we will mention 3 cases of interest. The first case is Karen Atala Rifo versus Chile, taken before the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights and then before the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, already examined in a previous lesson. In this case, the Inter-American Commission asked the Inter-American Court to establish the international responsibility of the Chilean state for the discriminatory and arbitrary interference in private and family life that Ms. Atala suffered because of her sexual orientation, which led to the court-ordered loss of custody of her young daughters. With this decision in this case, the court refers for the first time to discrimination based on sexual orientation. The second case is Duque versus Colombia. The case deals with the exclusion of Ángel Alberto Duque from the possibility of obtaining a survivor's pension after the death of his life partner based on the fact that he was a person of the same sex. As stated in a previous lesson, the court declared that since Colombia applied a briefer discriminatory 3-year statute of limitation, it had violated the American Convention on Human Rights regarding the protection of property rights of same-sex couples. The third case, Flor Freire versus Ecuador, concerns the international responsibility of Ecuador as a result of the decision that led to the separation of Mr. Freire from the Ecuadorian army as a punishment for acts of homosexuality. The Inter-American Commission submitted the case to the court's jurisdiction in December 2014. This case will enable the Inter-American Court for the first time to rule on sanctions meted out by states based on the person's actual or perceived sexual orientation. Thank you for watching this class. Please visit the website moocchile.com.